Making this video has been a real slog. Honestly, it has been a labour of love. It is a marathon. It is so long. But I just couldn't cut anything else from it. And this is why The Hunger Games means a lot to me. It's horrific and sad and honest about the world, but it's also hopeful. Really moves me. That's why I reread the original trilogy like twice a year, and have done since 2020 when I first read it. So if you also like The Hunger Games, or if you just pity me for having to edit down 7 hours of footage into 2, and for how many times I've cried in it, then please like the video, share the video with somebody, put the video on in the background to watch it all the way through. Help me with my watch time. I think I've had enough crying for like forever, but yeah, I was just so excited to be able to read this book at the same time as everybody else in the fandom that I just kind of wanted to commemorate, I'm not sure, one of those two. It with a video, even though this is, not, I don't usually make book videos so much anymore, but I love reading and I try to read at least 50 books a year. And The Hunger Games, like the original trilogy, and I think this book too, probably like my favourite book series ever. I've read many books that I've loved and thought were incredible, but it's only this series that has me returning again and again and again, and I'm never tired of these books. I haven't decided how spoilery I want to make this video, so I think I might actually make 2 versions, one that's spoilery and one that cuts out the spoilers. And maybe release them both at the same time, so we'll see. But so far in this book, I am literally barely any of the way through. There's been so many things that feel like massive revelations, massive like confirmations of things that people have always speculated about for years. And when it comes to Haymitch, you finally are seeing that like there's so many things about his past, his before being reaped, before he was put in the Hunger Games, that he did not share with Katniss, that are, in some ways, it's nice because you're like, damn, yeah, finally, the fans have been like confirmed with some of their theories. But in other ways, it does just feel a little bit too fan servicey, a little bit too much of a stretch. Because when it comes to the spoilers of that, we find out in these early pages, well, for one as well, we didn't know Katniss's parents' names. We finally know them now. Her mum's called Astrid March, and then her father, where is he? Where he gone? Where he gone? Burdock Everdeen. Excuse me? And now into the spoilers I was going to say. So Burdock is referenced as being For one, Haymitch is Haymitch's friend. He's actually much closer to the Everdeens than we ever knew. And then also Burdock's related to Haymitch's girlfriend, who is part of the Covey, and her name is Leonore Dove, very similar to Lucy Gray. So she is like a distant cousin of his, which is basically that fan confirmation of Katniss is related to the Covey to Lucy Gray from A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I mean, the one thing I do really like about that is, well, that then I guess makes it make some sense as to how Burdock is like the one guy who can sing to the birds with a beautiful singing voice, and he's known for that. And so like that's where it came from, is the musicality of the Covey, who he is distantly related to. There is a lot of references to a lot of these people we already know. We learn a little bit about Haymitch's family, the parallels between him and Katniss as well. His father also died in the mines. His family were also historically rebellious. Katniss basically grew up to be exactly like her father, except more sullen. And I don't know if we were ever told before that the reaping happens on the 4th of July, and this is also Haymitch's birthday. Does that make him a Cancer son? Does that make him a Cancer son? Interesting. He helps the bootlegger make alcohol, foreshadowing from I don't like to drink to becoming an alcoholic after the games. And also just the way that he is surrounded by people with different levels of rebellion in them. Like even Katniss's mum shows rebellion by turning up in the middle of the night when someone's been hurt after a whipping, for example, to give a salve, and doesn't take any charge. She just gives it and leaves. And obviously Katniss's father being there. Leonore only sings rebel songs to herself. She's not allowed to sing them elsewhere. One of the men who brought her up, because her mother died in birth, one of those men is gay, and that's actually straight up mentioned. Like it is canon at this period in time that people didn't care, only the peacekeepers cared, and they were in danger from the peacekeepers more than anything else. And I do remember this very, very light and vague sentence from one of the Hunger Games books. It might have been the first one, where Katniss says that one of the few things that District 12 had was the ability to marry anybody you'd wanted, which to me reads very much as queer marriage is a thing. We just never like explicitly saw it, but I mean, come on. And also, yeah, the parallels again with Haymitch and Katniss. He has a younger brother. Yeah, so like in some ways, I do like it because it's all the things that most of us wanted. But in some ways that almost makes it feel more like fan fiction of the original trilogy rather than a prequel. Just because it feels too neatly aligned. Yeah, like I'm struggling a little bit with that. But otherwise, so far I'm enjoying it. This is also going to be the first book I've actually read with my eyeballs and not listened to in a while. And I'm going to make time to read it. And there's definitely a lot of early signs about this book being about occupations, oppressive systems. I mean, that's always what the Hunger Games have been about, obviously. But I know that Suzanne Collins chose to write this book because she has something to say. And also the start of this book, before the actual story begins, are 4 rebellious quotes from different writers. All propaganda is lies, even when one is telling the truth. I don't think this matters so long as one knows what one is doing and why. George Orwell. A truth that's told with bad intent beats all the lies you can invent. William Blake. Nothing appears more surprising to those who consider human affairs with a philosophical eye than the easiness with which the many are governed by the few. and the implicit submission with which men resign their own sentiments and passions to those of their ruler. When we inquire by what means this wonder is effected, we shall find that a force is always on the side of the governed. The governors have nothing to support them but opinion. It is therefore on opinion only that government is founded, and this maxim extends to the most despotic and most military governments, as well as to the most free and most popular. David Hume. That the sun will not rise tomorrow is no less intelligible a proposition, and implies no more contradiction than the affirmation that it will rise. David Hume again. And then that last one is also referenced in the actual text. Hamish and Leonore have a conversation about expecting a reaping to happen every year on the 4th of July, every year on Hamish's birthday. Is silly to just assume and accept because it hasn't always happened. Why would you assume it will always happen in your future? And like, I get the point, but I'm always nitpicky about that sort of thing. But those are my early thoughts so far. Katniss's dad is named Burdog because his nickname is Birdie. That was a good one. That was a good one. Okay, so Hamish has just referenced Maisie Donna, who is the twin that we know that goes into the Hunger Games with him, as the most stuck-up girl in town. I thought she was the, as it's referenced in the summary, the plot, whatever it is shuttled off to the capital with the 3 other District 12 tributes. A young friend who's nearly a sister to him. I thought that was Maisie. Who gets called? A compulsive oddsmaker and the most stuck-up girl in town. So she's the last one. Who's the girl that is his friend, that is almost like a sister? Mama. Llewellyn McCoy. Was Tam Amber in A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes? Because apparently that is Lenore Dove's mother. Oh no, I can't read. Tam Amber made something that Leonore was wearing. Damn, he wasn't even reaped. Somebody else was reaped. We've met Peter's dad. He has a name too. Otho. Wow, and Katniss's dad is the one that gets him safe in this situation. T. He wasn't even reaped. What's Blue Dog doing here? Hamish knows about the lake and went swimming with Katniss's dad. Shade? I'm too tired. The fuck? Virus is one of the mentals. Oh no. The other mentor is Max. I love Max. God, I was hoping for Mags. I was hoping for more Mags. Oh, I love her, and she does not get enough attention. Already crying. Oh my God. Oh, I wonder why Hamish started using Sweetheart with Katniss. Because the origins of Sweetheart don't exactly make sense. I mean, unless it could be seen as like a term of endearment towards female 12 tributes that he likes, but who are going to die, you know? Like, if you read this, you'll see the parallels. Also, images also like just so slay already, this man. I also really like the 12 tributes, so I'm sad. I'm sad, they're all gonna fucking die. I think it just says so much about how these two mentors volunteered themselves, basically, probably, to mentor 12. And why they become part of the resistance in the Hunger Games. Oh, so they must have actually made the funeral soup or gotten it from somewhere. That's very sweet and sad. There's just so many parallels between Hamish and Katniss. Like, just so many. Like, Hamish doesn't just have one Rue. He has 2 so far. But also, you could argue that as he doesn't just have 1 Prim, he has 2.
everything's alright. But when I go away, my friends they tend to say not everything's okay, and I should feel betrayed. You got me, but you hurt me. It was time for me to change, but with you I would always stay the same. You let me down and left its mark, but now I'm finally crawling out of the dark. I'm crawling out of the dark. You got me. And you hurt me. A few doubts still remain in the back of my mind, but in the end I know I was doing what's right, and I know I'm better off alone.
A past victor is being punished by their kid being in the 50th Hunger Games. Apparently it's because they were doing something against the Capitol, but they are too valuable to kill. Their child, however, is not. I know it was something that was referenced in the original Hunger Games book. Past victors, their kids being picked for the games. But we never knew who. Now we know one of them. That's devastating. I can't even see through my glasses anymore. Pride Day match. They're literally mentoring their own child. How am I meant to put this book down? Oh, Jesus Christ, to live my life. That's me expelling the demons. What am I supposed to do with my life? I've got a blood test soon.
You had me. Now I'm free.
Oh my God. Oh my God. This book is ruining my life. In the best way possible. The only time something ruining my life is actually good. In some ways though, the way that this victor is being punished, for the spoiler video, it's BT and his son. For this victor being punished, it can also be seen as actually maybe weirdly a small gift, because this victor also has like a station in training, which doesn't happen. Mentors don't do that. And the point is for them to witness every last second of their child's final hours, days. And sure, in some ways that must be horrific, but for me personally, I see that as almost like a gift, because all of those other kids in there, their families were ripped away from them. District 12 barely got any actual goodbyes. They were literally just removed from their families and taken away. They didn't even get to stop in the Justice Building. So the fact that he is able to be there with, reverse, a drop to pronoun. So the fact that they are able to be there in those final days, final moments with their child, I think I think most parents would choose that option. Oh my god. I'm not even a parent. And it really fucks me up. Just going for my blood test. Are you okay? Have you been crying? Yes, I'm reading the new Hunger Games book. I mean, at least I'm like getting that experience of reading a Hunger Games book as it comes out and experiencing it with the fandom, which I missed out on with the original Hunger Games books, because I was more into fantasy rather than dystopian. So like, even though there are quite a lot of like really good books from that period of time that were dystopian, I've read a bunch of them now, like Maze Runner and Divergent, and like there's a few others I think, but I can't remember. Yeah, like I just missed out on that because I think partly I just didn't get it, and sci-fi dystopian always came across as like a boys' media, even though 2 of those 3 books have female leads, have young girls as like the main character, and romances as big parts of the plot. I was just in my fantasy era, like I was in my supernatural era. Not the show, I've still not watched that, but like I loved Charmed, I read Twilight even though it was bad. I watched the Twilight films to laugh at them, you know, Medium by Megan Cabot, things like that. Ghost Whisperer, slay. And yeah, I kind of grew up in a family that didn't really talk a lot of politics, even though one side of my family was more like political. They didn't talk to me about politics as a child. So yeah, it is nice to be able to like have this experience at the same time as other people. I had a market yesterday and I was talking to somebody, one of the other stall holders, and they were talking about how they are watching Lost for the first time because their partner was like, you need to watch Lost, and like they're enjoying it, but they do really feel a bit disappointed that they can't experience it at the same time as like everybody did, because it must have been more exciting at that point in time to be able to participate in fandom stuff too. Obviously there's still fandom things going on the internet, but it's not the same as like when episodes come out and people are talking about them, that sort of thing, when books come out. Anyway, I haven't got long. Where's my weight gone? Where did it go? Oh, it's in here. There it is. Leave me alone. Transportation. Reading in general isn't a popular pastime in the capital. It's a shame, says Plutarch. So Plutarch and Hamish are talking about the poem that Hamish's girlfriend is named from. They're both surprised at each other that either of them knows it and knows it off by heart. Lenore said, quaff means to drink, usually something with alcohol. And the guy telling the story in the song is trying to stop thinking about how he lost his true love, Lenore. And we don't know the specifics yet. This is how far I'm through currently. We don't know the specifics yet. But we do know from the original Hunger Games, she is dead. Or maybe in prison, maybe in A-box, who knows. But like either way, she's gone. She has disappeared somehow. So yeah, I mean, this would be that would be cleverer if this was like the first book. Because like, yes, it's foreshadowing, but like we already know. So, but it does add an additional depth of like, well, not only do we know that, you know, she does disappear somehow, die somehow, but her own lore before any of that happened is her, you know, her connection to the Covey, her connection to Lucy Gray, the first District 12 winner, who was disappeared very soon after winning. Also, how she got her first name of Lenore is from this poem/song written by a man who lost his love called Lenore. It's been a while since I've read of Songbirds and Snakes, but I'm pretty sure it's the same thing there too, right? The Hanging Tree song is based off of her, I think. Did she write the song? Are you coming to the tree? Yeah, I can't remember specifically, but again, there's another like song/poem that speaks of Lucy Gray's fate. Sad. Okay, it's also obviously foreshadowing for Haymitch, because like I said, quaff is to drink something with alcohol usually. The reference is quaff, oh quaff this kind, nepenthe? I have no idea how to pronounce that, no idea what that is. And forget this lost Lenore. So, and then Haymitch says, I think the important part is it makes you forget terrible things. So this poem/song is foreshadowing / predicting his future, becoming an alcoholic, losing the love of his life, trying to use alcohol to forget things. Snow just threw up in Plutarch's fucking fountain in his conservatory of plants. Snow showing he is well acquainted with the Covey, knows them by name very well.
I'm better off alone because you played this game a couple of times. You took it all while you stole my life. You blamed it on the alcohol, but that was just like you, not controlling your mood.
Does that mean Luella is black or like darker skin toned? If they've replaced her with someone from 11, I mean, it would confirm a lot of fandom theories about the same people in 12 being more like indigenous people rather than a bunch of random white people. I wonder if they find Katniss. Haymitch has just said he's letting the mentors know about what BT was saying. All I can glean from that is it could be dark and root vegetables might come in handy. So specifically saying root vegetables and not just potatoes like what BT was showing him leads me to believe that maybe one of the survival tactics ends up being them finding Katniss roots in the bottom of a pond or something that they can eat. Because I think if I remember correctly, everything smelled really good there, but was like really poisonous. So there were lots of things that you just couldn't eat. And I wonder if maybe that's partially where Katniss's dad got the name from as well. Is this game? Because now we know reading this, Birdie is friends with Haymitch. And we know from the original Hunger Games series, Birdie names Katniss and says to her, I can't remember the exact quote, but something like, if you can find yourself, then you will never go hungry. And Katniss root is what she was digging up in the bottom of like the lake or the pond somewhere. So I wonder if that's what happens in this game, that maybe Haymitch finds Katniss, and that's what causes this name choice further down the line. I don't know, might be a reach, but if it's not a reach, I'll be excited. Also, they're saying it's wet. It could be wet because of the tarp station. So, to me, more confirmation. God, does Haymitch have 3 roos now? It feels like he just keeps being delivered young children who he feels bad for and likes just for them to die.
And you hurt
Okay, girl.
me.
Okay, girl. Girlies. There was also, I don't think I talked about it in an earlier clip when I was actually reading this section, but there was a part where Plutarch was questioning Haymitch, obviously, but I think also just generally the tributes about why don't people rebel? Why do people just put up with how things are? Particularly when numbers are usually on the people's side. And like, of course, people have reasons. There are plenty of valid reasons why, like, someone can't do something. And that is why capitalism exists in the way it does. That is why governments do things that just make you more and more exhausted. They fill up your days more and more with work. They give you less and less money, or they take more and more money from you, like from bills, from taxes, don't actually use it in anything that the people want, i.e. healthcare, for example. Education, that's why they don't provide decent education, because well-educated people, in the right way anyway, because there's plenty of very educated, very smart people who are just stupid. Without the right kind of education, i.e. about what actually has happened in history and how rebellions actually have happened and how they have worked, without that education, you can't see the patterns of repeating history. You can't see the patterns of rising fascism. You can't see the patterns of propaganda. You can't critically look at media and see the propaganda it is, or see how it's twisting narratives, etc. Which is why I enjoy making my videos talking about media. And like, I don't know, obviously the first Hunger Games books were like spicy. They were spicy because they were saying things that nobody wants to say, because it's not usually profitable or safe to say those things. This book feels even more spicy. Like, it's a very thinly veiled commentary on today, which I already knew, but I didn't expect it to be quite so on the nose. And I like that. Unfortunately, because our education system is absolutely fucked, we need very obvious and very on the nose media about fascism, about all this shit, about rebellion. And like, whilst I wasn't particularly that enamoured by A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I understand its purpose to, you know, humanise evil people, bad people, to humanise dictators, to point out, you know, they are more than just what they appear to be. They are human too, which means they are vulnerable. They do not have all-encompassing power. They make it seem like they do with propaganda, but they don't. And a lot of people in positions like President Snow are very good at twisting those narratives of normal everyday struggles that people have and making them into reasons to buy into capitalism and fascism. I just had a thought. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but I feel like Plutarch Pevensby, oh my god, I always get his name wrong, kind of feels like if Snow's friend actually got to grow up. The one that got hanged when they became peacekeepers, who was originally from, I think, District 1 or 2, but his dad got some like fancy politician job and they moved to the capital, and Snow always hated him. I kind of feel like, his name begins with a J, I kind of feel like he has the same kind of energy that Plutarch has, but like Plutarch is the more like quiet, subtle working the system of an adult versus what was his name? It was very much like a young child / youthful look on things, because they both had like a background of like decent privilege, but neither of them likes the games. But both of them work in the games, trying to destroy the games, you know? Well, I now see a little bit about how he shifted from the person that starts this book into the kid that Peter and Katniss witness in book 2, when they watch the games themselves and watch Haymitch's game. Ugh. I also need to pause my music before I start fucking talking. I need recommendations. I need recommendations on things that people use to read books without having to fucking hold them all the time. Ugh. It's so hard getting into a comfortable position where I can actually see the book and the pages. I'm actually like a bit gobsmacked. Haymitch's ranking. Wow. My hair is doing something. I don't know. I'm near on like halfway through this book, and it's only just hit me why he chooses to raise geese in the prologue, or the end, I can't remember if it was a prologue, of the last Hunger Games book, and the symbolism of that. That's really sad. Didn't hit me at all. I forgot. And then, yeah, just suddenly hit me when she was talking about her geese. How has it gotten worse? I haven't done anything. We've got the anti-AI propaganda. Hell yeah. Good. Finally, anti-AI propaganda. Plutarch sighs when he mentions the tools that were abolished and incapacitated in the past, once deemed fated to destroy humanity because of their ability to replicate any scenario using any person. And in mere seconds, he snaps his fingers to emphasize their speed. I guess it was the right thing to do given our natures. We almost wiped ourselves out even without them, so you can just imagine. But oh, the possibilities. Fuck AI. Fuck AI. Fuck AI. Hamish has just gone into the arena. Sorry, my fan is on. I can't get my temperature in my home correct right now. Hamish is in the arena now, and yeah, basically the timer has just run out and they like can get off their plates. So just wanted to read whilst on camera for a little bit of this. That's a heavy backpack. Oh, he was given water. He found, oh okay, he found water. Oh, it's running to midnight. Oops, I don't care. This is when I should have had the camera on. The cannons. The first round of deaths. I'm actually like proper sad about who it was. I wonder if we find out at the end of the book when Hamish has to watch them all when he's won. Wyatt died on the first day. He was one of the 4 District 12 tributes. He was the odds body? I don't know. He is wicked good at maths, basically. Hardcore autistic as fuck. Very deadpan a lot of the time, but actually was very kind. He was very kind to the very young girl from District 12. and again for spoilers, then the girl who replaced her, and he was funny. And yeah, he was very good at working out the odds, knowing all these facts about the other tributes. I don't know. I thought he would be around like a little bit longer. I mean, particularly as like Hamish says very early on when he was reaped. He's like nearly 19. He was nearly too old to be reaped. He was already working in the mines. So he was tall and strong, as well as being really incredibly smart. So yeah, that one was a sad one. Like, I know Hamish as well was sad about a lot of other tributes as well that died, but some of them were a little bit hard to tell apart, I'm not gonna lie. So like, I'm sad about all of the death, obviously. But yeah, I think I'm a little bit shocked by that one, just because I just thought he would last a little bit longer. And I'm really shocked that all of 8 and all of 9 are gone. Like, I didn't really expect that. All 4 tributes from both of those districts just gone. Anyway, I suppose I've got to read the rest and cry more. Hamish thinks he died protecting Lulu, the replacement of... Oh my... what the fuck was her name? Luann? Louise? I don't know. I've suddenly forgotten her name. I also just realised, I said a while ago that Hamish has 3 roos. I suppose it could be 4 now, because he also really liked the Llewellyn replacement, Lulu. Everything is sad. Everything is sad. It's nearly 1 a.m. but I want to keep reading. I'm going to bed. Ugh. Again, more parallels. Hamish damages his hearing with an explosive. Like, I knew Ampert was going to die, but The how is really vile, honestly. Not dissimilar to Kato, honestly. Like, yeah, I'm a bit over halfway now. Right, time for the devastating part of our part's death. Before I started reading, I did wonder how much of Haymitch's life were we going to see. Obviously I knew we were going to get his games because that's like been talked about plenty, but I wondered if we were going to, you know, get the afters like we got with Snow's story was the games and then a bit afterwards, and then obviously Katniss had 3 books but I don't know, because like I think we're still a way off of ending based off of what I remember from the original Hunger Games books, and one of which is, you know, so the volcano has exploded. Basically almost everyone is probably now dead, right? But we haven't seen him meet up with Maisie Lee in the arena yet, and we know that happens. We know that they team up together, and I think they fight a few people as well before Maisie Lee dies. So that's quite a lot of stuff, including then Haymitch working out the force field throws back anything that's thrown off, and then Haymitch's victory. I assume we'll probably get some of the afters like we did with the original Hunger Games, like the first book. We got some of the recovery time for Katniss, the prep for the like final interview, and then like returning home, and everything else that actually happened was then in the second book. So I assume we at least get some of that. But I was kind of hoping for a bit more, because, you know, it's near on 25 years between this book and Katniss's story. And maybe that's because I'm 30 years old. I wanted to see some more like adult Haymitch, and maybe that just won't happen obviously in like a YA book, which is a shame. Like I genuinely thought we would maybe at least see him meeting or becoming friends or being friends with Chaff, because they seem quite close. I mean, the connections we have had in this one so far have been quite like enjoyable and entertaining and like clever, but there's just like, yeah, I don't know, there's just still things that we won't see, like all of the tributes he then was the mentor for before Katniss and Peter. I mean, so far, who have we had? We've got Plutarch, same, Plutarch, Effie, YRS, Beatty, Mags. I think that's it. I don't think I remember any other like tributes or anything like that that have been referenced in the original book. So yeah, I'm just going to carry on reading. And in enters Maisie Lee. Finally. Been waiting for you. Maisie Lee and Haymitch are together again. Maisie Lee has helped bandage Haymitch up after they fought with 3 of the careers. She even sewed him up. And they've just received, I can't remember what they call them, a gift, yeah, of the morning soup that District 12 make after somebody dies. Mags has sent it to the 2 of them. I just think this quote is really like beautiful and sad, trying to reach us, to let us know we are not alone in our pain. to give us strength to go on. I ditch my pack in a patch of Katniss, and we take off towards the disturbance. At least there's one reference. I was waiting for at least one. We sit smack down in the clump of Katniss, side by side, completely done in. Maisley says, one of us has to win this thing. One of us has to be the worst victor in history. Tear up their scripts, tear down their celebrations, set fire to the victors' village, refuse to play their game. Reminds me of Pa, Hamish thinks. Make sure they don't use our blood to paint their posters. Exactly, we'll paint our own posters. And I know just where we can get the paint. Oh, they got delivered baked beans! United Kingdom, England, baked beans. How is it only day 6? What do you mean it's day 6 and I'm nearly at the end of the book? Katniss was in her games for like about, well, the whole process was about a month, because I remember her reference to the full moon, but like she was in there for about 2 weeks, maybe 3, 2.5, something like that. Maisley's talking about her grandma who died. No one ever loved me more. I always hoped I'd look like her one day. Never going to see myself grow old, I guess. Clearly, I mean, you can tell this way earlier in the book, but clearly Hamish's games are heavily edited, because the story we get from, you know, Katniss and Peter when they watch Hamish's games is that him and Maisley have decided to split up, and, you know, like, they're done with their alliance because there's only 5/4 people left, and Hamish goes running after her when he hears her screaming and tries to help her. And I remember Katniss saying, like, you know, nobody would have ever faulted him for not running after her because they'd, you know, null and voided their alliance. They were done. But actually, they weren't. Like, yeah, she said some of those words, but both of them have kind of actually come to that agreement of, like, actually, I don't know, man. Like, both of them just, what the word they were using in this is they both felt and looked lost. She was heading off to get their food, like their potatoes, to bring them back so they could eat something. And that's when she's murdered by these big birds. Big bird. And yeah, it very much feels like that from either before the game or somewhere in the game, Hamish had been dedicated, decided the winner, which is something that is discussed in, like, our real world a lot when it comes to certain reality TV shows. America's Next Top Model. We know this idea of selecting a winner at the beginning of the show that the whole production knows about, but the audience don't and the contestants don't. So I think they chose Hamish early because he's been a troublemaker, because he's been rebellious, much like what happened with Beatty, that him being rebellious both in his game and since leaving his game has led to his own son ending up in the Hunger Games. And you can say the same for Hamish. Everyone who he's been close to in the games has had horrific deaths, basically, for a start. They didn't just eat some poison fruit and died. Didn't just die in their sleep, you know. There were lots of, like, more chill ways to die. But instead, they've had really horrific, horrible deaths. Llewellyn, obviously, was thrown from the cart and I think hit her head on the wheel of one of the other district's carts, which had spikes on it. So she was, like, thrown and dead before she even entered the games. She was then replaced by some unknown girl from District 11, and they nicknamed her Lulu. Getting into the games, Wyatt died, like, right away. Like, immediately died. Murdered by one of the careers, trying to protect Lulu. Lulu then died by, like, a really extended kind of it kind of was like a mixture between poisoning and an allergic reaction. It was kind of like she was experiencing anaphylaxis, which is not exactly a short painless or minimal pain death. And then I've forgotten his name. Ampert? Come on, girl, where is it? Where is your name? Ampert. Ampert, which is Beatty's son, is literally eaten alive by mutation squirrels that are clearly programmed to only target Ampert, because Haymitch tries to get rid of them. They don't even go after him. They just go straight back for Ampert. And all that's left of him is his fucking skeleton. Like, that's horrific and disgusting. Obviously, he wasn't super close with some of the other tributes in the Alliance, but I can't remember which districts they were, but I think it was 2 of them from 11, I think 1 from 10. They were in red, I can't remember. But they all died from a mutation porcupine that does shoot its splinters, whatever the fuck they are. And those splinters are poisonous as well. Like, all 3 of them died there. And now Maisie, and as well, majority of their alliance died in the bloodbath at the very beginning, and then from the volcano that erupted, because most of them were camped on the volcano. They didn't know it was a volcano. It just looked like a mountain. And that one in particular was triggered by him, possibly by him trying to fuck up the games. And then, yeah, Maisie is basically being pecked to death. And then, as we know from the original book, she's speared through the throat by one of them. And, like, I think that's maybe one thing that doesn't parallel Katniss, is that she didn't get very close to anyone, really. She had the same sympathetic, empathetic outlook on the other tributes, including the careers. She didn't want to kill people, neither did Haymitch. She did kill people, so did Haymitch, because they had to. But who she got close to, you know, was Peter, Rue. Like, she didn't really know or get close to Thresh, but I would have him on that list because of what she did for Rue and how he was like, okay, I'm going to spare you. And then he dies at Cato's hand. Possibly. Like, again, that's one of the things you don't actually know. It's likely because he ran off with Cato's outfit. Oh, no. Right. When you read this book, you realise Maisie is mouthy. As she should be. And they took away her final words by having that bird penetrate her throat. There's something else that's pertinent, I think that's the right word, and is reminding me of Squid Game, actually. From one game to another. But what is reminding me of Squid Game, I mean, obviously it comes up mainly in A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Also, I just realised that is the reference of this design, A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Haymitch wears in the book, made by his Covey girlfriend's Covey uncle. I think it's a bit more startling in this book versus A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. But like, obviously through that book and this book, we see a lot of university students who are like complaining about their grades and stuff, particularly when it comes to like prepping the tributes. Something we don't really see in any other book is people more like the game makers being young. So I don't really know who it was that they saw. Haymitch does comment on it probably being very low end, like newbies, because they are in the game cleaning up after something. And I don't know if it's just me, I wasn't sure if it was the same exact spot where Haymitch blew up, or if it's just another one of those hatches that's just kind of gone a bit awry. But him, Maisie, the last District 1 tribute, and I think the last District 4 tribute, spot them, there's like 3 of them. One of them takes their mask off and shows that they're really young. And that reminds me of Squid Game, because in this book as well, the game makers all wear the same like white uniform, whatever this uniform is, which makes me think of, you know, all the masked people in Squid Game. But like in Squid Game, there's a few times where people are unmasked. Most of the time they're very young. There's like maybe 1 or 2 who were like maybe like 40s. But I think especially in season 2, it's a lot clearer that actually these people are really young, because we are also following one of them. And like, whilst it is not necessarily overtly expressed that any of this book is commenting on the occupation of Palestine, I would say that's also a comment on that too. That it's not only young people, like young children, babies, teenagers, etc., Palestinians being killed, but it's also very young kids doing the killing, but also lapping up propaganda. The propaganda in the capital is so strong that we see a lot of young people being embarrassed that their elders were rebel sympathisers. And I think as well, everything with the Hunger Games is always like a commentary on how like detached from reality people who lap up the propaganda and mainly are part of the oppressive class or systems. I've forgotten what I fucking said. Like how detached those people are from the reality of things. Because when we read these books, especially, you know, the original Hunger Games and this book, the people in the capital, like especially the further on we get, the harder the propaganda is for people to deconstruct and critically analyse. I think overall too, the Hunger Games are definitely a commentary on like anti-intellectualism, like people who can't be bothered to learn and understand things for themselves, and whether they just accept it for what it is or whether they complain about it, the complaints are like everything is always blamed on the wrong thing because nobody questions that. Like really, what did the Hunger Games do to serve Panem as a whole? It didn't do anything to serve Panem as a whole. It only served the capital. This section here is after Maisie dies, Mags sends Haymitch some hot coffee and strawberry ice cream to remind him of when they all had ice cream before they went into the games. We're in the kitchen at the tribute apartment, and Proserpina's been blubbering about her grade. Her sister Effie told her a positive attitude's 97% of the battle, and Maisley had said, "I'll try to keep that in mind in the arena." More ice cream. Mags and I try not to laugh because Proserpina wasn't born evil, she just had a lot of unlearning to do. That particular line. And like, you can also see the anti-intellectualism sort of reflected in the district tributes. Like, the careers don't ever think that they have anything to learn in training before the games actually begin. Like in Katniss's first game, they carried around a measly amount of food because they didn't expect to ever get stuck somewhere. They didn't expect their food to ever be destroyed, and they never learned the skills of hunting food or foraging for food or anything like that. They didn't learn how to identify poisonous plants. And the same can be said for this year, to the point of actually one of the District 1 tributes is mocked in Caesar Flickerman's interview for being an idiot. That's literally it. He's straight up called an idiot. They never develop much strategy outside of brute force. And, you know, like Cato ending up just relying on almost a full body suit of armor. Like, the people who buy into capital propaganda the most out of the tributes are those ones. And like, most of the time they are rewarded for it because they usually win. But also what they do is illegal. You're not meant to train to prepare for the games, but those 3 districts do. So it's almost like a little bit of, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. We will ignore the fact that you are training your children to be in the Hunger Games if you remain loyal subjects to us and you keep everybody else in line. And I mean, that as well connects with things that were said in this book, but also in A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The kid whose name I can't remember from that, whose name began with a J, like a Johannes or something. I don't think it was Johannes. But like, yeah, it's, the capital might favour the career districts. They still see all of the districts as equally like subhuman. Comments were made in this book, but also in that other book I mentioned, about anybody who comes from even those districts not being worthy. This idea of like a pure blood, purebred, I don't know if race would be the correct word there, but you know, breed of people, I guess. It's kind of like how in this day and age, poor people who are like millionaire bootlickers, it's like, just because you join in on the oppression that these millionaires are causing in your country does not mean you're going to become a millionaire. Does not mean they accept you any more than they accept the people who are being more directly harmed by these actions. I mean, it's a bit like how most peacekeepers come from 2, right? Mainly 2, maybe a little bit of 1, and a little bit of the capital. But like, the propaganda around the peacekeepers is that everyone thinks they are from the capital, they're capital citizens, but they are not. And the only people who know this are people who have, you know, been in the games and met people who have told them, or people from 2 who have told other people that. And so like, people from 2 are maybe more likely to join the peacekeepers because it kind of gives them a capital card, even though they don't live in the capital. They live in shittier districts. They're cops. I mean, there was even a brief mention of a story in this book about occasionally a young woman from the district will fall in love with a peacekeeper and have their baby, but nobody respects that their relationship. Obviously they shouldn't ACAB, but also like the only thing that ever really happens is the peacekeeper doesn't want to be there for the kid or the woman and gets moved on to a different district because it's actually against their laws to do that. Oh yeah, and I mean, it's sort of implied by Haymitch here that both Maisie and Marit were the ones that died on this day because they were the ones that attacked those game makers. And I thought it was just Marit who killed somebody, but I don't know. I do think it's really funny though that one of the other tributes is just called Welly. It makes it hard to take the end seriously because Welly is like one of the 3 remaining tributes still alive. And I just can't get on board with somebody called Welly. What do you mean? Why is she called Welly? Suzanne. I do think the ending of this game is still quite similar in a lot of ways to Katniss's first game, because the final 4 were 2 District 12 tributes who weren't going to kill each other. Obviously in Katniss's games that was like partially manufactured by like bribing them that both of them could go home. I also kind of see that as like making up for this game where they had double the tributes and still only 1 kid that went home. Obviously I think Kato was District 2, wasn't he? But A Korea, I can't remember what district Foxface is from. I feel like 6, but I really can't remember. It's the same sort of like final 4, and Foxface, you know, sacrificed herself. That's the fan theory anyway, particularly based off of the films where you can see that her character knows her poisons. She knows her poisonous plants. That isn't mentioned in the books though, but like I'm still very much here for like she did that on purpose. And yeah, obviously I don't know how yet, but Welly is not going to live. She's going to die soon. And again, the 2 District 12 kids were a kid from the seam and a kid from town. I mean, we both know that they both win by playing the game makers and outsmarting them too. I mean, if you follow or have at least been following what's been happening to Palestinians since late 2023, you'll see the references. She has the shrunken, glassy-eyed look I know from tough times in the seam. Another casualty of the capital's weapon of choice, starvation. That one was... So, Haymitch found Welly. She's in a tree. She's really not doing good. She's like starved and dehydrated, barely can move. She can't even swallow things really. She's sort of like half swallowing, half of it's coming out of her mouth. I got a delivery of some pudding and some chocolates. So he spoon-fed Welly, and whilst half of it came out of her mouth, half of it did at least go in, and he put half of her chocolate in her mouth. And as he was getting ready to finally get some sleep, he hears someone crying, and he thought it was Welly, but she was already asleep. And it's a District 1 girl, somehow at the bottom of their tree, not trying to hunt them. I don't know whether she knew they were up there or not, but she's crying. and Haymitch chooses as his act of rebellion to drop her some chocolates. I think as well, like, I think that illustrates really well how class often changes, how generous people are, how usually people with not a lot are more often likely to be more generous even though they don't have much to be generous with, because they know what it's like to not have anything, to not have much to work with. It's the joke of everyone marginalised on the internet passing around the same $20. Whilst I love the idea of this, people like the District 1 girl often don't actually appreciate it, or like they appreciate it in the moment but they still don't believe you deserve the same back. And now Hamish has finally referenced the song that his girlfriend is named from, but he's now actually referencing the man in the song who lost the love of his life as him. Like, he's never done that before. He always sort of compares his girlfriend Lenore to the man of the song. He always thinks that Lenore is going to lose him, but this is the first time he's ever said he is like the man in the song. The dawn finds me weak and weary, like the guy in Lenore Dove's poem. Is he about to blow up the cornucopia? Which Katniss practically does. Obviously she doesn't blow up the cornucopia, she blows up all the food around it, but like... And again, like, near the ending, you know, Peter is nearly dying in the original Hunger Games. Welly is nearly dying in the Hunger Games. Peter and Welly don't want to be left alone. I wonder if after Hamish's game is when they stopped teaching anything about mining in school in District 12, because he has blown things up. He's taken things he's learned from mining related classes. Like, is that another way they've continued to keep 12 down and continuing the anti-intellectualism movement? Depriving people of life-saving and important education. I do still think it's interesting that, like is Haymitch not like in Katniss's life because Haymitch isolates himself after the games and after all of his other loved ones dies. He doesn't want his friend Birdie to be killed, or his friend Birdie and his whole family to be killed, especially when he already does things outside of the law, i.e. hunting. You know, I just still have lots of questions I would like some explicit answers to. Big spoiler for this one, but I feel like Hamish's thinking is flawed. This milk he has been delivered, who he's very sure is from Snow and is poisoned. The choices he has to make are give it to Welly and risk her dying, drink it himself, risk himself dying or looking greedy and selfish. Also, that other option, he could look like he purposefully murdered her. He feels like those are the only two choices. For me personally, because as well, everyone's watching. So you can't just decide one way or another and not have some kind of pushback somewhere. I, with my big autistic brain, I think Wyatt would appreciate my outside of the box thinking. My odds might be a little bit better. I personally would probably pretend to fall over and spill it everywhere, so that I wouldn't have to choose either of those options. yes, it's a waste if it isn't poisoned milk, but unless you have anything left from like earlier, because there's 2 different antidotes to being poisoned. One of them is the charcoal tablets, and another one is like a liquid thing. Unless you have any of those left, you don't have another choice, really. Because you could be like, hey, I don't know if this is like legit, so I'm going to take a mouthful, let's see what happens, and then I'm going to take some of my charcoal tablets or my jippity-doo if I start feeling funky, you know? So I don't know if he's going to think of that option or something else is going to take it out of his hands. Oh, he does. He does say it. He says the thing I just said. I didn't even read that yet. So he doesn't get to even make the decision because someone's died. And we know who's died because we know it's him and Silka at the end. I have forgotten how to read. That's gnarly. That's really gnarly. Considering Welly was so weak, Silka did not need to do all that. Ugh. Okay, some of the occupation stuff is getting heavier-handed, and I kind of can't believe this book has been published in America. She literally wrote about a one-sided truce. I will be the one to honour the Capitol, says District 1's tribute. Wow. How do people read this? Or work on the films? And they're Zionists. The man who played Snow is one of the few, like, anti-war activists who commented on all this shit all the way up until he died. Not many other people did, or do. Wow. Oh, damn. Also, I feel like the choice of how that last tribute was murdered is also a heavy piece of symbolism. Yeah, so like we're getting to the end of the game. And there's this much left of the book. So we're still definitely getting more. But I don't know how much. Do you remember when a particular group of people sat on a hill to watch over a particular fence as airstrikes happened, and they saw it as a type of entertainment? That's basically what this book is talking about, is all that kind of shit. That's what all these series are talking about, is that sort of shit. Before I finish, or even maybe get to this, I have a theory that in that transition period between the games finishing and, you know, sort of being able to be alive and functional, where they're supposedly fixing and healing the winning tributes, I have a theory that they may have possibly caused Haymitch's alcohol dependence. I don't know. It's just something that I've had a feeling of for a little while. Whilst my pasta is cooking, carry on reading. It's funny how Haymitch and Katniss both feel bad for like the prep teams and Effie and hope that they aren't being punished or are upset about if they are being punished. It is after dinner, however, I'm so warm that I like need my arms out for a bit. I'm cooking, except now I've finished cooking and I'm just hot. Wow, Snow showed him Lucy Gray's singing performance. If I'm correct with Katniss being sort of like a distant relative to the Covey and to Lucy Gray, this paragraph that Snow said earlier in the book but has come up again now as Haymitch is realising, like, that guy in the video is him and her. Bet I know a thing or two about your dove. Like what? Like she's delightful to look at, swishes around in bright colours and sings like a mockingjay. You love her, and oh how she seems to love you, except sometimes you wonder because her plans don't seem to include you at all. And that very well reflects Katniss of the Hunger Games. Not necessarily Katniss before the Hunger Games or really after them, but like through the Hunger Games and all of the interviews and on stage and then doing the district tour. Because besides then, when is she swishing around in bright colours? But the rest of it is definitely true. And also, people don't necessarily know the singing part about Lenore, because she doesn't sing in the performances. I don't think anybody sings in the performances. They let the audiences sing along as they play. Only Haymitch and maybe a handful of friends and family know that Lenore Dove is a singer as well. And again, very few people knew that about Katniss. And it feels like that's how Peter probably felt as well through the games. And like in that a short period of time after the games into the next games that they were then in as well. And maybe that's more of a reason why Snow hated Katniss so much and enjoyed playing with her, because it doesn't seem to matter how far removed you are from the Covey lineage, the Covey family tree. There always seems to be women who take after Lucy Gray in a lot of ways. However, there's not really a connection of like the names, obviously, because Katniss's father named her differently to how the Covey traditionally name their family. This sort of section reminds me, though, something else I wanted to see more of in this book was, what I wanted to see more of in A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was Tigress. So I kind of hoped maybe they would include some of that in here, but it seems like still no. Like, I don't know, there were just lots of interesting people that we just never really got to know much about or like have vague histories of, that just still haven't really come up. Also, it seems like Haymitch and Effie both ended up in the Hunger Games at the same time as each other. Neither of them by choice. And that Effie's always kind of been very kind, if not a bit silly. And I want to see more of that too. And yeah, there we go. They really are for the greater good, the Hunger Games. It's like, girl, no, shut up. Oh my god. Oh, damn. So basically what I've just read, still not finished, what I've just read is when his mentors come out, Mags and Juarez. They have been made disabled. They've clearly tortured these women who are both physically and mentally very fit and healthy and well. Like, they bring Mags in a wheelchair and won't let her stand up. I don't know if she even really can stand up. And Juarez is twitchy. And yeah, I mean, just it's more the end of the book that really has quite a heavy imagery borrowed from, but also just like, as a disabled person, the governments around the world do things that disable people to prevent them from being able to fight back against injustices, whether it's done to themselves or to other people. And then they bring in further eugenics policies to basically make it next to impossible for disabled people to live unless they are just a lucky part of the upper class with enough money to pay for healthcare and treatments and carers and stuff like that. I mean, how many of the victors come out of here disabled, physically or mentally? Like, Peter doesn't have a fucking leg. He loses a leg. Chaff doesn't have a hand. Like I said, I mean, I know now Max didn't come out of her games disabled. I neither did Juarez, but like, we have plenty of our own parallels for this. So come back in a few years' time when I've written my dystopian novel that is more to do with the parallels of what's going on in the UK and America, you know. So that's sort of my main thing. Like, I believe her intentions are good. Like, I can appreciate the effort and I can appreciate her own craftsmanship generally. The references are just getting heavier. They are just getting heavier and heavier each time. He just found out that someone has actually remained in prison or in jail, imprisoned, and he's very upset that they lied about it, and he's thinking that they've been confined, starved, tortured, raped, murdered. Maybe I'm about to get some tigress though. The one with the cat ears appears, dangling a shrimp before me. My mouth opens automatically and I chew the delicacy while her friend takes our picture. Okay, maybe not. It could be her, but I cannot quit now. The Nor dove's life is at stake. Is his family's house on fire? And he has nothing left of his family because the clothes he left in were removed from his body, cut off of him, and incinerated. He gave the knife back to his brother that his mum gave him for his birthday. He has nothing. There's nothing of theirs. And Wyatt's dad killed himself. Oh, and he's just mistaken Merrily for Maisily. Oh. Oh no, don't. Candace's dad singing for the fucking funeral. Oh my god. I'm never gonna get to the end of this book. What happens to the Covey after this? Because they don't really exist in Katniss's time. No way. No way. No way. their planted poisoned gumdrops. So I drive away anyone and everyone who could ever have been considered dear to me. Old neighbours, Hattie, customers, schoolmates. Blair and Burdock hang on the hardest. Blair finally acknowledges the truth of my position, gives me one final hug and leaves sobbing. Even then, Burdock insists on showing up. Sometimes along with Astrid. So, his alcoholism started with sleep syrup, which I'm pretty sure Katniss talks about plenty in the original books. Oh no! Okay, I'm on the epilogue, but I also just want to quickly read. Plutarch is basically trying to tell Haymitch that there's, you know, rebels and a revolution growing in the background, and they want him, they need him. He's like, no, I have no reason to live, so what the fuck? And he says, we do want you. You shook up the capital both figuratively and literally with that earthquake. You were capable of imagining a different future. And maybe it won't be realised today, maybe not in our lifetime, maybe it will take generations. We're all part of a continuum. Does that make it pointless? And I'm glad that that's like at least in the last couple of pages of the last chapter. But now I'm just on the epilogue, and I think he's about to talk about seeing Katniss as a baby and a child, and what he's been doing since. I first saw the girl at the Hob when she was just a baby. Burdock was so proud of her. He toted her around everywhere. After he died in that mine explosion, she started coming alone, trading the odd squirrel or rabbit, tough and smart, her hair in 2 braids, reminding me, for all the world, of Luella McCoy, my sweetheart of old. And after she volunteered for the games, that nickname couldn't help but slip out. I didn't want to let them in, her and Peter. But the walls of a person's heart are not impregnable? What does that mean? Not if they have ever known love. I didn't want to have anything to do with their memorial book after the war. What use, what point to relive all the loss? But when Burdock's page came up, I had to mention him showing me the grave. And I felt compelled to tell them about Maisie Donner, former owner of the Mockingjay Pin, and how Sid loved the stars. Before I knew it, they all came tumbling out. Family, tributes, friends, comrades in arms. Everybody, even my love. I finally told our story. I'm gonna be so dehydrated. Don't mind me, just crying whilst I'm editing this fucking video. And after he told them about Lenore, Katniss turned up with goose eggs for Haymitch to hatch. I think the only thing I can say at this current moment in time is to that Hamish in the epilogue who didn't see the point in recording all the people they'd lost and those people's stories, is that the reason why everything gets so fucked and stays fucked and is hard to undo is because the people in charge, the people with the power and the money, they get to decide what is true. They get to decide what's taught in school curriculums. They get to decide what books are allowed to be published and what books are allowed to remain available. There's a lot of histories that have been destroyed by book burning. And much of the time, independent presses, independent works, things that we keep are what can help crack the egg of realising how censored and sanitised and propagandised our media, our history, our education is, our news is. So I understand recounting those things is painful. He lost so many people in 1 year and then proceeded to have to watch 2 children die every year for the following 25 years. Almost. And the thing that's frustrating to me is, whilst I know I'm getting this, like I get it, but the people in charge don't get it. They think they are Hamish. They think they are Katniss. And somebody else said that on Twitter. It's not fair, not fair for me to basically steal someone's tweet when I'm talking shit after sobbing about another Hunger Games book. For a while there, reading that, I did think that maybe the cause of Murdoch's death was actually still being friends with Hamish. Thankfully, that's maybe at least one death that's not on his conscience. So anyway, now I have to decide what to do with my life presently whilst I am recovering from being absolutely devastated by that book. Buy some eSIMs. Email your MP. About our stuff and other people's stuff. And also, as a small note, I know that Suzanne Collins has not mentioned anything about Palestine, no stance at all. But I personally feel like a lot of the parallels between this book and the Hunger Games in general, but like especially this book, are reflecting the horrors that they are going through and what we have been witnessing on social media for over 2 years. I'll see you next week.